In a world where everyone is invisible, what measures some individuals will take to be seen or at long last discovered are extreme. What happens in these cases? Or perhaps a better question is why? I personally believe it begins with the development of our egos and simultaneously the natural development of empathy. What is an ego? Some may say this is an exceedingly difficult question to answer. Through my research, I believe it's best to be described in the simplest terms in compliance with Occam's razor. The ego is a person's sense of self-esteem or self-importance. The ego is born out of fear and isolation. It creates our identity and separates us from those around us when we're very young. The birth of ego, according to Choyam Trungpa, is the process of identifying the self in terms of opposing ourselves to others. Put simply, it's the process of witnessing other egos around us and carving out our own, in either opposition of those around us or in alignment with them. Our ego is what we are truly seeing in any mirror we choose to gaze into. When we see our image reflected to us, our ego is what we see. We do not often see a mass of cells accumulated to form the organism we see gazing back at us. We reason that we're so much more, and so is everyone else. How about empathy? How is empathy naturally developed? This is also developed by witnessing it in others. Empathy develops from self-awareness, i.e., our ego. As young as 5 and 6-year-olds, we become more aware of our own emotions. We also begin to recognize them in others, and our emotional vocabulary expands. But what if these experiences in our natural development are stunted or are never fully implemented? Today, I'd like to discuss the case of the Bever family, where these natural processes were neglected at best and actively fought against at worst. On the evening of July 22nd and 23rd, 2015, the Bever family lived at 709 Magnolia Court, Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. The family of 9 consisted of parents David Bever, age 52, April Bever, 44, and their 7 children. Robert Bever, 18, and Michael Bever, 16, were the oldest. The younger siblings were Daniel Bever, age 12, Christopher Bever, age 7, Victoria Bever, age 5, Crystal Bever, age 13, and 2-year-old Autumn Bever. Their lives were closely guarded from outsiders. It's known that David Bever worked in the tech field while April homeschooled their children. Neighbors described the family to be reclusive, but friends remembered them differently. In an interview, a friend of April's recalled them driving in a snowstorm to bring her son a TV, since his television had stopped working, and stated that April had a big heart. April Bever was active on Reddit, posting as Okie Mom. She would post on various topics. She was part of a Secret Santa group, as well as a nail polish group. She would also sometimes post on sensitive topics. A few such posts can be seen in a thread about family and being married at a young age. I was 15 when I got married in Texas in 1987. Parents had to sign a form, was not pregnant. Still married to the same guy and 7 kids later. Not letting my daughter marry at such a young age, but it worked for us. I lived in Oklahoma at the time. In Oklahoma, I could be married at such a young age if I had been pregnant. I think it's worth noting David Bever was 23 years old when they married. I have 7 children, and we've always lived on one income and never had any government assistance or needed it. We have a 4,700 square foot house, 2 newer cars, and my kids do not do without. There are childless people that do not have this. Life is about making good job or income choices and then making the best money choices based on your income. I would never give up having any of my children so I could have more money. They are amazing people, and the world will benefit by having them in it. And nothing I could buy or invest in could compare to giving a person a chance to have a life. I had 2 boys first, then a girl, and then 2 more boys. She was always asked if she was the only girl, and she really wanted a sister, so she was thrilled when the last two were girls. Now brothers, I think she would like to strangle a couple of them sometimes. We homeschool, so they're together 24/7 and really do not fight with each other like I did with a one brother and sister. Robert Bever, 18, and the oldest of the 7 children, would later testify that this was not an accurate depiction at all. Robert described a lonely and sometimes violent childhood for both him and Michael, who he said had a speech impediment and likely had dyslexia. He stated that homeschooling was little more than being told to sit in front of an interesting website and garner what he could from it. His mother, April, would find the site she wanted him to study, and then it was his responsibility to educate Michael and the others. We could go months without leaving the house, except to buy groceries, Robert said, adding that his parents often talked about the rapture and the biblical apocalypse as a retribution thing for everything they hated about the world. When asked if Robert had subsequently became interested in mass killings and the apocalypse, Robert cracked a smile, laughed a little, and said, "I took an interest in it, yes." He goes on to say his parents even warned the children to stay away from the windows in the house to avoid being seen. They told us the world was full of people who wanted to hurt us, but that the real threat was already inside their home. Robert claimed his father, David Bever, would punch and kick the boys while casually reminding them that he could kill them anytime he wanted to. Partly as a result of those threats, he began to stockpile body armor and often wore it in front of his parents, Robert said. "This is my life preservation rig," Robert once told his father, according to Friday's testimony. "It meant he couldn't kill me," Robert explained. "Every time I put the body armor on, I was empowered." Later, when shown an evidence photo of a hatchet Robert had initially purchased for yard work, Robert Bever showed the world his first relatable human and appropriate emotion. He began to cry. "What upset you about the photo?" Chief Public Defender Corbett Brewster asked. "There's a lot of blood. There's a lot of blood," Robert said, tears streaming down his cheeks. "I'm sorry. I don't know what I was thinking." Since going to prison, Robert Bever has been diagnosed with several mental health issues, including major depression with psychotic tendencies, he said. He told jurors he had never seen a mental health professional or even a family physician before his arrest. Wearing black and gray prison stripes and led into the courtroom in handcuffs, Robert also sported tattoos on his fingers that read LWOP ×5, life without parole ×5 on one hand, and life on the other. He had entered with the look of someone who had succeeded in an incredible achievement. He was finally unique. Those who were about to hear him telling his amazing story would never forget it. Robert Bever was finally given his moment on the stage he had killed to get. Books would be written about him, movies would be made, time and time again, rebooted, reimagined. Maybe even HBO or some major network would make a series about what he had the guts to see all the way through. He was finally discovered. He was finally unforgettable. Everyone would know his name and what he had done. So then, he began to recount the horrific night of July 22nd and how he and his brother Michael had planned to kill more than 50 people, how they had to begin with their family first, kill them quickly, dismember them quietly, and place their body parts in the attic where they could possibly rot undetected and undisturbed for years. Take the family vehicle along with $400 to Washington State with guns, over 3,000 rounds of ammunition, knives, body armor, and even a crossbow or two. There the string of mass killings would truly begin and their legend would be born.